Your brain right now is running software that was designed for a world that no longer exists. Every time your heart races before a work email, you are feeling a system built for a saber-toothed cat, not an inbox notification. Researchers who study hunter-gatherer societies have found something startling about how rarely those groups experienced anything like modern chronic anxiety. By the end of this video, you will understand why your brain refuses to fully relax, and what our ancestors did differently that modern life has quietly erased. You will also learn about a specific nightly ritual practiced across dozens of ancient cultures that may have protected people from the exact stress patterns we struggle with today. Something changed in the last few thousand years, and your nervous system never got the memo. This is the story of why you feel unsafe in a world that is, statistically, safer than it has ever been. Anxiety disorders now affect hundreds of millions of people worldwide, according to global health researchers tracking mental health trends. That number has been rising steadily even as violence, famine, and predator attacks have dropped to historic lows across most of the modern world. This gap between how safe we actually are and how unsafe we feel is what scientists call the mismatch problem. Later in this video, I will explain why your brain treats a Monday morning meeting the same way it once treated a rustling bush in tall grass. I will also walk you through what anthropologists have observed in surviving hunter-gatherer communities, and how their daily rhythm differs sharply from ours. Many people assume ancient humans lived in constant terror, hunted by predators and starving between meals, which would suggest they had far more anxiety than we do. That assumption turns out to be largely wrong, based on decades of fieldwork among groups like the Hadza of Tanzania and the Juhoansi of the Kalahari. Anthropologists who lived alongside these communities recorded long stretches of the day spent resting, socializing, and storytelling rather than in a state of fear. Studies of hunter-gatherer sleep patterns found that despite lacking electricity or modern medicine, these groups reported almost no symptoms resembling chronic insomnia or anxiety. The key difference was not the absence of danger, but how briefly their stress response was allowed to run before it switched off again. A lion crossing the horizon would trigger a sharp burst of fear, followed by a clear resolution once the danger passed or the group responded. Modern stress rarely resolves that way, because a difficult email or an overdue bill cannot be outrun, fought, or finished in a single moment. Imagine a small band of early humans gathered on an open plain as the sun begins to set behind distant hills. A sudden call from a lookout freezes everyone in place, heart rates spiking as eyes scan the grass for movement. Within seconds the group identifies the sound as a harmless bird, and just as quickly, laughter and conversation return to the fire. That entire stress cycle, from alarm to resolution, might last less than a minute before the body returns to a calm baseline. But here's what most people don't realize. Your body cannot tell the difference between a lion and a looming deadline. The same ancient alarm system, called the fight-or-flight response, floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline, whether the threat is physical or purely mental. The problem is that a deadline does not resolve in 60 seconds, so that chemical flood has nowhere to go and nothing to release it. Neuroscientists have shown that unresolved stress hormones circulating for hours or days can wear down the body's systems over time, a process researchers call allostatic load. This is the modern condition your ancestors almost never faced. A stress response with no clear beginning, no clear ending, and no physical outlet. Many hunter-gatherer societies also lived in what anthropologists call high-contact cultures, where physical closeness to others was nearly constant throughout the day and night. Family and community members often slept within arm's reach of each other, a practice some researchers believe regulated stress hormones through simple physical presence. There is something even stranger almost nobody talks about, and it involves the ancient practice of communal fire gathering after dark. Sitting around a shared fire each evening was not just about warmth or cooking food for these early communities. Firelight naturally lowers brain wave activity into a more relaxed state, according to research on how flickering light affects the nervous system. Storytelling around the fire, a nightly ritual in countless ancient cultures, gave communities a structured way to process fear, loss, and uncertainty together. Oral tradition allowed frightening events, like a hunt gone wrong or the death of a group member, to be spoken aloud and shared rather than carried alone in silence. Modern therapists now recognize the same principle, calling it processing through narrative, where speaking a fear out loud reduces its grip on the mind. Without that nightly ritual, many people today carry unspoken stress internally for weeks or months at a time with no outlet at all. Rites of passage offer another clue into how ancient societies managed fear and uncertainty rather than avoiding it entirely. In many tribal cultures, adolescents underwent structured ceremonies marking their transition into adulthood, often involving physical challenge, isolation, or symbolic tests of courage. Anthropologist Arnold van Gennep famously described these ceremonies as having 3 stages: separation from the group, a challenging transition period, and eventual reintegration with a new identity. Researchers studying these traditions suggest they gave young people a controlled, communal way to face fear and uncertainty rather than experiencing it alone and unresolved. Modern life offers almost no equivalent structure, leaving many people to face major life transitions, like leaving home or losing a job, without any communal ritual to process them. This absence of structured, shared processing may explain part of why modern anxiety often feels formless and endless, rather than tied to a clear beginning and end. Shamans and healers in many ancient cultures also played a specific role in managing communal fear, particularly around death, illness, and unexplained natural events. By offering explanations, rituals, or ceremonies for frightening or confusing experiences, these figures helped communities feel a sense of control over uncertainty. Modern neuroscience actually supports part of this ancient approach, showing that a sense of control, even a symbolic one, measurably reduces the body's stress response. Imagine a hunter-gatherer child waking suddenly from a nightmare in the middle of the night thousands of years ago. Instead of lying alone in a dark, silent room, the child would likely wake surrounded by the breathing, warmth, and presence of an entire sleeping group. There was no need to lie awake catastrophizing in isolation, because comfort and safety were physically within reach at every hour of the night. Today, many people sleep alone in silent rooms, disconnected from any immediate human presence when fear or worry strikes in the middle of the night. Researchers studying isolation have found that perceived social disconnection activates the same threat detection regions of the brain as physical danger does. In other words, loneliness itself can trigger the ancient alarm system, even when there is no actual predator or threat anywhere nearby. This may help explain why anxiety rates tend to be higher in societies with more social isolation, weaker community ties, and more people living alone. There's another piece of this puzzle that researchers only started taking seriously in recent decades, and it involves movement. Hunter-gatherer life involved near-constant walking, carrying, digging, and physical activity spread naturally throughout each day. That physical movement gave the body a direct outlet for stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, burning them off through muscle activity almost immediately. Modern life, by contrast, often traps people at desks for hours while their bodies remain flooded with the same ancient stress chemicals meant for running or fighting. Studies consistently show that regular physical movement lowers measurable markers of anxiety, essentially giving the body the release valve it evolved to expect. So what does all of this mean for someone living in a modern city, thousands of years removed from the plains where this system first evolved? It means your anxiety is not a personal failure or a sign that something is wrong with you specifically. It is, in many cases, an ancient survival system doing exactly what it was designed to do, just without the tools your ancestors once had to switch it off again. Your ancestors resolved fear through movement, through community, through storytelling, and through physical closeness at the end of each day. Modern life has quietly removed nearly every one of those built-in resolution mechanisms, while leaving the alarm system itself fully intact. This is not a call to abandon modern life, but an invitation to notice what has been lost, and what might still be recovered. A short walk after a stressful moment, a conversation with someone you trust, or simply sitting near others in silence can echo what your ancestors did instinctively. Understanding this ancient system does not erase anxiety, but it can change how you relate to it when it arises. The next time your heart races over something that is not actually dangerous, you might recognize an old, familiar voice from deep in human history. To recap, ancient humans faced real physical danger, but their stress response was typically short, resolved, and supported by constant community and movement. Modern anxiety often persists because the same ancient alarm system now fires constantly, without the resolution tools our ancestors relied on every single day. Rituals like fireside storytelling, communal sleeping, rites of passage, and daily physical movement all gave early humans a way to complete the stress cycle. Recognizing this gap between ancient design and modern life is the first step toward working with your nervous system instead of against it. Your brain is not broken. It is simply still speaking a language shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of human survival. If this exploration into what our ancestors understood about fear, community, and the human mind resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into ancient wisdom. There are entire chapters of forgotten human history waiting to reframe how you see your own daily life. Leave a comment below sharing which part of this ancient survival story surprised you the most. And if you found this valuable, sharing it with someone else might just help them understand their own mind a little better too.